$7.2 million in extra sales is what I was able to add to an e-commerce business in just 6 months by changing their Facebook ad strategy. And in this video, I'm going to show you what that new Facebook ad strategy was and why it worked so well. Okay, so it's business case study time, and I want to start by going through a little bit of information about the business and provide a bit of context so you can see what it looked like before we made the change, and then we can go through the results of after and obviously talk about the strategy itself. So let's have a look at this business a little bit. So it's an e-commerce business operating in the baby niche, sort of newborn specifically. Most of their products are catered towards newborns, but they do have products sort of go up a little bit older, you know, to 2, 3, 4 years of age, just about. Average order value $115. The average order value has always been really good in this business, and part of that reason is because of the market dynamics, is because of the purchase behavior of the potential customers. And if you think about it, the purchase window for a business like this is always going to be quite small, because effectively people live their entire lives not buying anything for newborns, and every now and then you might buy a gift if a family member or a friend has had a baby. But if you're going to have a baby yourself, which is obviously the most of the target market, you don't buy anything for newborns, and then you buy a lot of stuff for newborns in really quite a small purchase window, just a few months, and then once the baby's born, arrives, grows up a little bit, you don't need those products anymore. So they move through quite quickly. Now, there are disadvantages to that, and this strategy I'm going to go through in this video combats some of the disadvantages that come with that really short purchase window. But there are also advantages to it, and one of the things is that the market refreshes automatically really quickly. So if you think about the average person has a 6-month buying window, maybe another 6 month one when they have another kid, something like that, right? But it's a short buying window, and 6 months might be a bit generous in terms of the time frame. And it means that if you find a strategy, an ad creative, an offer, products that work really well, you don't need to do as much as the advertiser changing things up, because the market itself is changing. If new people are in that audience today, and those are very different from the ones that were in it 6 months ago, you just don't need to refresh things as much. And if you find a winner, you can get more out of it. There are other markets, if you think about like hobbyist markets, that, you know, so take fly fishing, for example. People are typically into that, and they're likely to be into that for many, many years, maybe decades of their life. Obviously people come in and out, but it's a much more static audience, and therefore you need to do more changing in terms of ad creative and refreshing things, whereas an audience like this that is very much centered around a time of life, the market automatically refreshes, and like I said, there are advantages to that for sure. Okay, so business context before. Revenue, they were doing about $800,000 per month. So, you know, this is a good sized business. It's just shy of $10 million per year. Their meta ad spend is about $7,000 per day, comes out about $210,000 per month. So good sized budget. The vast majority of their new customer acquisition is coming from meta ads, so Facebook and Instagram ads, and this business specifically is very Instagram heavy, as you would expect, given the products that are being sold and the target market. So the average ROAS, this is all before we made the changes, 3.2x, which is okay. ROAS typically drops the more and more you spend. So, you know, this business could achieve a much higher ROAS with a significantly lower ad spend. So that needs to be factored in when assessing results. So it's okay, but, you know, that's part of the reason why we got involved, was to really help improve that. Their break-even ROAS was 2.5x, and it's a really important metric for every Facebook advertiser to know. You have to know, at what point am I actually losing money, at what point am I break even, at what point am I making money? And their break-even was 2.5x, which roughly works out, by the way, if you do the maths, that they have about a 40% gross profit margin. Now, just a little aside, I've been recommending this business for a long time that they need to increase the price of their products and increase their margin. 40% lower than I would like it to be. If I was to run an e-commerce business like this, I would be shooting for 60% gross profit margins, because it's going to make your advertising easier, it's going to make you more profitable as you scale, all that sort of stuff. But they wanted to be price competitive, and I totally get that. That's just a little aside, by the way, that I would be shooting for higher gross profit margins. But yeah, so a 40% gross profit margin works out at about a 2.5x break-even ROAS. That's the point at which they're acquiring customers, they're not making money, but they're not losing money. So with the 3.2x, you know, this business is profitable, but not massively so. Like, it's kind of profitable. Like, it is profitable, and they're operating at quite large scale. So if the percentage of profit is relatively low, but it's a reasonably large number, as it was in this case, then that can still be something that's worthwhile. But yeah, I definitely felt like we could do better here. Target ROAS was a 4x, and the business, that's literally the number they gave to us when we started working with them. And their logic was, look, if we can hit a 4x ROAS, that will mean we can scale our campaigns. That'll mean that we can operate at a larger volume. That'll make the business more valuable. E-commerce businesses like this, often their end game is an exit. They're looking to sell the business, so scale is really important to that. And also they knew that if they could hit the 4x ROAS and then they could scale their sales, they would then be able to reduce their costs, their marginal costs in terms of their cost of goods sold, because they'd be able to buy in larger quantities, they'd be able to get better deals with manufacturers because of the increased volume, and therefore that gross profit margin would improve. Okay, so they've done a decent job with their meta ads. 3.2x kind of shows that, and just sort of looking at them anecdotally when we're going through, we're like, these are okay. But I did feel that not only did they need to be improved, because sometimes you look at ads and you think, well, these are okay, but they could be better, but you're using the right strategy. I felt we needed a different creative strategy in particular. So what they had been doing to date is they tested a whole bunch of stuff, but most of the ads that were performing best were pretty simple image ads, very much focused around the product, the sort of thing that you see a lot of ads like that, right? And you see a lot of ads like that within this space. So we thought we could do better. So here's the new creative strategy that we recommended, was to hire niche-specific influencers to create video ads, okay? Now, what I'm saying here is not just simple as hire influencers, because what a lot of people do is they hire influencers to promote their products, sometimes services, to their own audience, as in the influencer's audience. So you hire an influencer, you pay them a couple $1,000s, they use your product, say it's fantastic, and they post that to their audience, right? But the problem is, because they're doing that organically, within 24, 48 hours, no one's ever going to see that post again, because that's the nature of these things. So you might get a nice bump in sales for those 24, 48 hours, but you don't get any longevity out of it. You don't really get to benefit from that influencer's influence over the long haul. So I was like, no, we're not hiring influencers just post on their socials. What we want to do is hire an influencer to create the exact same type of video that we think of, that typical influencer style product promotion video, but instead of them just posting it on their socials, I want us to be able to use that in our ad campaigns, and therefore we can massively extend the time period over which we can benefit from that influencer creative asset, because we have control of it, we can use it, we can run it as an ad for as long as it continues to produce results. The type of stuff, very simple product recommendation style video ads. I'm sure you've seen the sort of thing that I'm talking about. They're all over the place. It doesn't need to be different from that standpoint, traditional influencer marketing, but combining it with the ads and us having control, that's the difference that I think a lot of people miss out on. And it's probably something that I thought of because I have an ads background, right? So I'm always going to think of like, ooh, we can use this as a creative asset in ad campaigns. Now, the reason why I really wanted to do this is because, and this applies to all influencer marketing across all industries, is that the reason why you work with an influencer is to borrow their trust. They have spent a lot of time, a lot of effort building trust with an audience, so their recommendation carries weight. Like, if you think about, you're watching my videos, there's a good chance that if you're watching this, you might have watched some of my previous videos. If you have watched a number of my videos over a period of time, you've probably gotten to the point where, you've implemented something I've recommended, it's worked, you therefore are more likely to trust my recommendation. So if I then go say, oh, by the way, I'd recommend you use this software, it'll help improve your Facebook ads, there's a good chance you might at least try it out. That's what you're doing with influencer. That's why it works in the first place. And I think this was especially important for this business given the market dynamic, and that's why I spent a bit of time a minute ago talking about the timeframes, how people don't buy anything in this space and then they buy a whole bunch of stuff in this space, probably more than they need. I've got a small child, so I know exactly what this process is like. And then you don't really buy anything again, maybe until you have another child. So you don't have necessarily the time to build that relationship between your potential customers and your own brand, because it's just a shortened time window. Whereas you can borrow someone else's trust, who's done it, who they're going to recognize, and you get to benefit from that without having to go through all that time and effort yourself, and especially important in this market. So I'm obviously making the case here for hiring these specific influencers, and I really like doing that. And we're going to break this down of exactly what the deal looked like and the results that we got and all that sort of stuff in a second. But I do need to say that it is quite hit and miss. You can absolutely hire influencers and they just, for whatever reason, don't land at all. But you can hire some that could completely change your business. So if you do embark on this journey and go down this influencer road, and the first one you try just doesn't land at all, I don't think that's a reason to not try again. I think that's just you didn't quite find the right person for your particular business, which happens. So anyway, so this was what we wanted to do. This was the sort of new creative strategy. But the business owners, the owners of this business, they wanted to start small. They were like, okay, they were a bit reluctant. Let's start with a small influencer, find one that we can pay $3,000 to, $5,000 to it, and do this. But I felt really strongly that that was not the road to go down. And so here's kind of how I pitched it with this business. I was like, look, you're spending $200,000+ a month on ads. Let's just take a week's ad budget and use that as our influencer fee. And by doing so, work with a much more recognizable name, a much larger influencer. And I sort of set the bar as like, I want someone that the majority of your target audience is going to immediately recognize. And that's quite a high bar, but this business is spending $200,000+ a month. So there's a $50,000 budget to just create a few simple posts like this. You can work with really, really big names if you've got that sort of budget for that sort of deliverable. It's quite an easy deliverable. So that was the pitch. And I think that helped it get across. You're like, okay, yeah, it's only a week's ad spend. I'm like, if this just improves results by 5%, it's going to pay for itself. 10%, it's going to pay for itself over time. So that kind of got them around. Anyway, so I said, like, here's what we need to do. Let's just create a list of the influencers that you know would meet that criteria of the majority of your audience would recognize them. And you can absolutely do that. If you set that bar that high, there's not going to be many. And then we simply reach out to them and we will keep going until someone says yes. This is not a sophisticated strategy. We're just reaching out primarily through Instagram DMs. Often with people, you're going to hit gatekeepers. People are just going to get ignored. So you might have to just try and reach out in every different method you can. If you reach out in all different ways in a relatively short time period, normally people are going to take note of that. And I'll explain a little bit more about reach out strategy in a second. Because I've got some thoughts on that, and people do this wrong all the time. And I get lots of people approaching me, so I see this, people doing it wrong all the time. Anyway, so we've got someone to say yes. I can't say who, unfortunately. But influencer deal structure, that's what it looked like. So the agreed cost was $45,000. So I mean, you know, it's quite a lot of money, and I appreciate most people watching this video will not be in a position to spend that, and that's okay. Most people in watching this video won't have that sort of budget, and that's okay. You can do this at lower scales, but just giving you the example here. So $45,000, and the deliverable was 3 product recommendation style ads. We give the influencer $45,000, and we want 3 video ads back. Each one was going to be focused on a different product, 3 of the best sellers, is what I'd recommend. And the way we structured it was we wanted 2 ads filmed in the influencer's typical recording location. So for example, this right here, right? This is my typical recording location, and people who watch my videos, this is what they're familiar with. And then one of them we wanted to do actually using one of the products, which just wouldn't work in their typical recording location. They had to be somewhere else actually using it. So that was for a bit of variation there. Oh, and in the one in their typical recording location, they had the products being held up. Again, I'm sure you see that sort of thing when you're spending time on socials. So I do want to break a bit of a limiting belief around this, and that you can hire much larger influencers than you think. The influencer worked with here is like a big name. The vast, I can't say, but the vast majority of people watching this would know who this person is. So anyway, so creating these ads probably took the influencer 2 hours or less. I mean, how long does it take to record? These are 3 really short videos, right? This is not a lot of time. So I think that when you're hiring an influencer and you spend that much more to get that much of a bigger name, that is well worth it, because it's not a big time commitment. And here we worked with a real sort of A-list influencer, but you can find people that have really good size audiences, very valuable audiences, for $5,000. And again, the deliverable is not very difficult. So you can work with much larger influencers, you think, and they can make a big difference to your business. This is an example of, as I said, really going big on who we're working with. Okay, one of the things that I like about approaching it this way, and I think we've seen this before working with influencers because we've implemented this strategy a number of times, is that you're not asking the influencer to use up their goodwill. Because I think more than the time that it takes an influencer to create the deliverable, in this case the video ads, what they are also concerned about is they're like, I can't pitch too much stuff to my audience, and they get offers all the time. I can't pitch too much stuff to my audience, that's using up goodwill. But because we're going to run this as ads, we don't need them to do that. Like, don't post it on socials. You don't need to. It's fine. We're going to run this as ads. I do think that really helps with the pitch if you want to use this strategy. Now, I think this influencer did actually post once on their socials anyway. It might have been through a story, it was on Instagram, about one of the products, but that wasn't like in the agreement. They just sort of did that anyway. And just sort of hopefully breaking limiting beliefs here. A lot of people with large audiences have audience value that far exceeds their wealth. So let's take this industry as an example. We've got an influencer that is known within that sort of space, within the sort of family, children space, right? And there are some big names in that space. But it's quite difficult for them to monetize that audience. Like, it basically comes from product recommendations. That's just about it. Whereas there are other industries where, like, I'm an influencer within the Facebook ad space, we can sell high ticket services. It's much easier for someone like me to monetize my audience than it is someone like that. So depending on what industry you're operating in, you might find someone that's got tons of audience value, will be incredibly valuable to your business, but they're not making as much as you think they are from it. And that creates a great opportunity for you because you don't have to pay them tons. Okay, so like I said, I get, for my Facebook ads audience, I get at least one a day, often multiple a day, constant people wanting me to promote their software, their new AI tool, their whatever, right? And I ignore the vast majority of them. The vast majority are poor reach outs. They're reach outs like, hey, we've launched this new thing, we're looking to collaborate, let's set up a Zoom call. It's like that pitch just sounds like effort and like, I don't even know if your thing's any good. It's rubbish. So if someone comes to me with that pitch, the only ones that I pay attention to are the ones that are from like big names that I would recognize, right? Like I just did an agreement with HubSpot, for example. Like when they come through and they say we want to do something, it's like, okay, yeah, I'll talk to you guys. But if I haven't heard of your brand name, which is 95% plus of the people that reach out to me to get me to promote stuff, I just ignore it. And you probably see that because if you watch my videos, you'll see that I don't do many sponsorships at all because I only want it to be the best quality stuff. But there is a world in which I would work with brands and businesses and promote products and services where I don't already recognize the name of the business. But here's what they need to do. They need to get in touch and they say, we're willing to pay you this fee. We're willing to pay you $5,000 to promote our software on one of your videos with a 30 second ad read. Here's what we want you to say about it. Oh, and here's a link to a free demo account so you can check it out and give it a go and make sure it's good for your audience. If someone gets in touch with me like that, it's like, that's really easy for me to go and check it out, see if it's any good. Is the fee worth it? So you described the fee, you described the deliverable, and you've given me like the information I need to actually assess whether it's good or not, because obviously I'm not going to promote anything that I don't think is good to my audience. That's what you need to do. Don't message influencers being like, oh, I just want to collaborate and maybe give you a bit of affiliate commission and you have to trust that my tracking software is working and I don't try and cheat you out of the commissions that you're due. And these things influencers are thinking, right? That's not going to work. You want to say, I'm going to pay you this for this. Here's the thing to check it out. Are you interested? Make it really simple. Okay, anyway, so a little bit of an aside if you want to use this strategy. The results, what did this actually do, this strategy for this business? So let's start with hook rate. So I mentioned before that the ads they were running previously were mostly image ads. They had tested some video ads. And hook rate, I'm comparing video to video. Hook rate, by the way, is the total number of 3-second video views on an ad divided by the number of impressions. And what that does is it shows you how good a job is this ad doing at hooking people in at the beginning. So getting them to engage with the ad and watch it. And that's actually the most important part of any video ad, is those first few seconds, because if that doesn't do a good enough job of getting someone to watch, well, then they don't consume the rest of the content and they don't hear about the call to action and they definitely don't buy or become a lead. Whereas if you can get that to work really well, they're far more likely to do those other actions. So hook rate's something we monitor closely. And that's when we're one of the best things about working with an influencer is your hook rate often goes up a lot. Anyway, so the hook rate previously on the video ads that had been run was at 11.7%, which is actually decent. Anything over 10% is okay. But that was the new hook rate. Just under 35%. So there's more than a 3x hook rate. That is huge. That basically only happens if you've got something that's just incredibly different and visually interesting and engaging, or you're working with someone that most of the target market recognize and trust and want to check out. And that's what we're able to do there. So the hook rate, huge improvement by using the video ads that this influencer recorded. Okay, what impact did that have on the return on ad spend? So if you remember previously, our return on ad spend was 3.2x, which was kind of profitable. The return on ad spend massively increased, 5.9x. And this is basically, well, these are the same products we were advertising. It's the same offer. It's the same benefits being talked about as related to these products, why people should buy them. The big difference here is that because the influencer is featured so prominently in these video ads, so many more people are watching the content. And that's why I started with hook rate. They are engaging with it in the first place. Now, so many people with the previous videos might have been interested in the products offered, but they just never bothered to watch because it just didn't interest them that much. Whereas because the influencer's in there, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, what's this? Oh, and they watch it. Oh, okay, I'll check it out. And that's fed through. Now, the improvement in hook rate is never quite going to match, the improvement in ROAS is never quite going to match the improvement in hook rate. Like, we're not going to end up, more than 3xing return on ad spend here. But that's a huge improvement, 3.2x to 5.9, basically just by switching out the creative. Nothing else has changed here, just switching out the creative. And obviously this is way over the target ROAS of a 4x, which is absolutely fantastic. Okay, so ad spend became a lot more efficient, with spending an amount that's generating much more return, hence the return on ad spend. And the cost of hiring the influencer took literally 2 weeks to pay itself off. Because if you think about it, we've gone from a 3.2x ROAS to a 5.9x ROAS. We've taken less than a week's ad spend, so $45,000 out of $210,000 a month, so less than a week's ad spend. And if the ads are, I can't remember do the exact math, but 60% more efficient, like that takes almost no time to pay for itself. Even if you hire an influencer and your ads are 10% more efficient, like as in they get 10% better ROAS, if you've only spent a week's ad spend on that, that will pay for itself in 10 weeks. And then from then on, it's even better. And of course, like I said, these ads can be run for months, maybe even years, especially with an audience like this, where the market automatically refreshes because it's very specific to time of life, which is fantastic. So the massive increase in return on ad spend obviously significantly improved revenue as well. So let's run through that. So previous revenue, you remember, was $800,000 per month. Revenue increased to 1.4 million per month, so almost a doubling, which is absolutely fantastic. The ad spend in that time, previously we're spending $7,000 a day, 210 roughly per month. The new ad spend stayed exactly the same, which you might think, hang on, they hit their target, why aren't they scaling? We would have scaled, wanted to scale, but the issue was production. We're already selling almost twice as much product. E-commerce business, there's only so much stock they have. And we wanted to scale the campaigns, but they were like, hang on, we've almost double sales. If we then go and double ad spend and we end up with a 3-4x sales, we won't be able to fulfill on that demand, and therefore we'll have to turn the ad campaigns off. So in those scenarios where something like that's going to happen, and this happens all the time with scaling, with product-based businesses, even with service as well, because you're going to hit capacity, it's better to not scale and then have to turn the campaigns off when you've just run out of stock. It's better to try and keep things consistent. So that's what we did. But obviously, scaling can happen. So just to quickly recap here, the change that was made and actually what it cost. So we spent $45,000 on an influencer to make ads for this business. And just quickly, by the way, when you spend $45,000 like that on an influencer, or even a much smaller amount, you don't then have to pay for a videographer. You don't then have to pay for a photographer. You don't have to pay for a video editor, because all of that's included within the deal. Like, the influencer obviously has the capabilities to do all that, because otherwise they wouldn't be creating content online in an influencer. So particularly if you're working with smaller influencers and you're like, oh, it's like $5,000 to work with this influencer. It's like, yeah, but were you going to spend $2,000 on getting that creative made anyway? Deduct that from the cost, because they're going to handle that as well. So just a quick aside. Anyway, so we spent $45,000 on an influencer to make video ads for this business, promoting the products, and that increased revenue by $600,000 per month, which is $7.2 million per year. Just switching out the creative, not really changing anything else. Shows what can be done when you get the right strategy, and why Facebook ad strategy is so important. It's so important to match it up with your particular type of business. Okay, so given what we've just been through, would you like us to massively improve your Facebook ad results? So how we can help, because there's a few different options depending on your business and your scale and things like that. So firstly, Heath Media, my specialist Meta and Google advertising agency, create Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube ad campaigns for clients. We offer done-for-you services, so we'll literally do it for you. We'll create your campaigns, manage them, optimize them, and help you get the best results possible, and obviously take that workload off your hands. There's a link in the video description if you want to book a free call with one of my team members. No obligation, just to find out how we can help and all that sort of stuff. We do have a $5K per month minimum budget requirement for this service. So if you're over that, to be honest, if you're over that point, I'd recommend you work with an agency like mine anyway, because you're at a scale where the improvement in results you're likely to get from doing so is well worth it. And then that obviously frees you up to focus on other areas of your business that probably need attention as well. So if you're over a $5K per month budget, I'd recommend go ahead and booking a call if you want help getting much better results and saving yourself some time. If you operate with a budget less than 5K per month, don't worry, we've got a great option for you as well. And it is called Facebook Ads Mastery, which is my new Facebook Ads course, brand new course material, the best stuff we've ever put together. It's literally what we're using to train our new team members on. We've had fantastic feedback from it so far. And it comes with a school community. I've already got 700 plus members in there, so business owners just like you, great place to connect with other people. And there's daily interaction in there from me and my team. We're answering questions, providing feedback, looking to help people out who are in there as much as possible. We do live calls, trainings, Q&As with both me and members from my team that specialize in various different things. It's only £97 per month, so much more affordable for those businesses that are operating at a smaller scale. And the link is in the video description if you want to go ahead and jump on that. And finally, if you found this video valuable and would like you to make more like this, more case study style videos, please subscribe and then let me know in the comments. What you say in the comments, the feedback that you give absolutely impacts future content creation. So that's really valuable. And we have all the potential case studies that, I mean, hundreds, if not thousands, that we could produce that I think people would find valuable. So if you like this, let me know in the comments and I'll see you on another video.